The fish hadn't even bit yet when Karen came screaming across the lawn like a banshee in yoga pants, arms flailing, clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, hollering that I was illegally fishing in a lake I've owned for over a decade. I swear at first I thought this had to be some kind of prank. Maybe one of the neighbor kids dared her or something, because who does that, right? But nope, she was dead serious. She called me a trespasser on my own dock, threatened to call the sheriff, and then handed me a handwritten fine for $500. All because I had the nerve to cast a line in what she was now claiming was HOA-regulated water. Just like that, my peaceful Sunday morning turned into a full-blown war between logic and lunacy. And you know what? Logic didn't stand a chance. See, that morning had started like every other weekend I cherish. Got up at dawn, brewed coffee so strong it could strip paint, walked barefoot down to the dock, baited my line with the precision of a man who's been fishing this lake since it was a mud pit. The mist was rolling over the water birds, waking up trout starting to rise. It was peace I'd earned. I built this place with my own hands, bought the land before the HOA even existed. Not only do I own the house, I own the lake itself. My deed carves it out as a separate legal entity, meaning not a soul, not even the self-appointed queen of clipped hedges has any say over what I do here. Or so I thought. Karen barreled down the path like she'd uncovered a national security threat, voice cracking with righteous fury, waving some laminated paper she probably printed off a template site for fake HOA citations. Section 7B, Lake, Conduct Regulations, she barked. No fishing between April and October without board approval. I just stared at her and asked, "What board?" "The one that doesn't own this lake." She looked like I'd slapped her with a wet trout. "We voted last month. You were absent. Unexcused." I couldn't even be mad. It was like watching a soap opera written by people who forgot how reality works. "You can't vote rules for land you don't own," I explained, holding up my deed. She twisted up her face and stuck the fine to my cooler with pink duct tape. That's when I realized this wasn't just a Karen moment. This was an HOA power trip gone nuclear. I figured I'd clear it up with Gary, the actual HOA president, later that day. He blinked at me like he'd just heard the word email for the first time. Karen said it was urgent. He muttered something about trout mating season and disrupting the ecology. I had to sit down. "Gary, there's no trout mating season in April. This is Texas, not Oregon, and even if there was, it's my lake. I have the deeds, the permits, the water rights. You guys can't just invent environmental rules for property you don't control." He just shifted uncomfortably and mumbled about Karen's passion for lakefront harmony. I left before I said something I'd regret. Come Monday, my mailbox was overflowing with HOA notices. The $500 fine was now $750 if I didn't pay within 10 days. Next was a warning that further infractions could lead to lien placement. Then a citation for willful disobedience. I was boiling not because I couldn't afford the fines, but because it was so ridiculous. My property, my lake, being turned into a battleground for a woman with a God complex and a Facebook group. I pulled out my deed, checked with a lawyer friend just to be sure I was right. They didn't have a leg to stand on. But I wasn't about to fight Karen with court filings. No, I had a better idea, something with a bit more teeth. You see, I'm not just some guy who owns a lake. I'm a semi-retired aquatic biologist. Built wetlands, managed exotic fish habitats, stocked plenty of private lakes. That night I sat in my garage, sipped bourbon, flipped through an old biology textbook and thought, if Karen wants to make the lake her business, maybe it's time to make things interesting. Quick search, a couple of calls, and a few days later I had a shipment scheduled from an exotic fish supplier. I knew nothing illegal, nothing dangerous, at least not to humans. Vegetarian piranhas, red-bellied, terrifying to look at. But all they eat is plants. They move in a swarm, skeletonized bait in seconds, but wouldn't hurt a soul. I marked out the shallows, made sure everything was contained to my part of the lake well within the boundaries on my deed. By the time the fish truck arrived, the plan was set. The driver just gave me a look, but I waved it off. "No problem," I said. "Say no more," he replied. Within 2 days, those piranhas were thriving. I'd drop a cucumber slice in and it vanished in a blur of silver. It was like having fireworks underwater. Didn't take long for Karen to return. That Saturday, she was hosting a Ladies of Leisure lakeside brunch and casting contest. 20 women in floppy hats and matching wine tumblers swarmed the dock. Karen strutted out, cast her line, and within seconds her bobber disappeared. She yanked hard, nothing. Cast again, snap line gone. The third time her reel spun off into the water like a torpedo. She screamed, stumbled, and splashed knee-deep into the shallows right where my new fish hung out. The piranhas darted over. She shrieked, flailed, and scrambled out like she'd been hit by lightning. "Something bit me," she yelled, though she was fine, ankle and all. The other women scattered. I just sat back on my dock and enjoyed the show. That day, Karen declared, "We're banning fishing until further notice." The irony was too rich. I'd won the first round, and the legend of the killer salad piranhas spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. By Sunday, half the community had watched a video. One of the brunch guests uploaded Karen shrieking, slipping in the water, flailing, as the vegetarian piranhas swarmed her feet. The video was titled, "Karen versus the Demon Fish," and the group chat was having a field day. Someone posted a poll: should the HOA perform an exorcism on the lake, or just rename it Karen's Lagoon? Of course, Karen wasn't done. By Monday, the board called an emergency meeting. Karen came in blazing, demanding a full environmental audit, a mesh barrier, even floating the idea of draining the lake. Gary just sat there looking like he aged 5 years overnight. I wasn't invited, but Trina, a neighbor with a wicked sense of humor, kept me updated by text. She's calling herself a victim of aquatic aggression and wants to drain the lake, Trina wrote with 3 laughing emojis. Then Karen tried to turn the tables by questioning my deed. Tuesday morning, I found 3 board members at the edge of my property, clipboards in hand, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. I walked up, handed them the original deed and a satellite photo from the county records. Philip, the retired accountant, studied them, sighed, and said, "Well, that settles it. I'm going home." Karen, watching from her golf cart, almost bit through her straw. Not one to quit. Karen staged another big show, a Lake Safety Awareness Day, complete with a self-proclaimed fish whisperer named Kurt. The guy showed up in a truck with a meatball sub-story and tried to net. The piranhas came up empty. The crowd started whispering, and just when Karen tried to rally little Ethan from down the street, maybe 9 years old, piped up, "My dad said, those aren't dangerous, just vegetarian piranhas. I swim with them every summer." That turned the tide. Parents started questioning the HOA's priorities. Trina, always ready, yelled, "So Karen, how much did the HOA spend on Kurt's meatballs?" The crowd lost it. The real twist came 2 days later when a local news crew showed up. Someone tipped off Channel 9, "My money's on Trina." The anchor Carla interviewed me on my dock. I told her everything, even let her film the piranhas eating lettuce. The story aired under the headline, "HOA fines man for fishing in his own lake. Turns out the fish are healthier than the board." Karen's meltdown was looped 3 times. Someone left a rubber fish with a pink ribbon on her porch that night. Still, Karen doubled down. She sent a formal demolition proposal threatening $2,000 a day fines if I didn't remove my dock and boat ramp for aesthetic harmony. I just laughed. Instead, I started working with a tech company I'd partnered with years ago, installed underwater sensors and cameras, even set up a little website called Lake Logic. Posted everything: piranha videos, HOA meltdowns, even the Channel 9 piece. The neighborhood loved it. Parents brought their kids to see the famous salad piranhas. Karen was fuming. Then she crossed a line. Early one morning, my sensors picked up chemical changes in the waterfish surfacing belly up. A neighbor's blurry photo showed Karen at the lake before dawn dumping something in. The authorities got involved, found illegal algae chemicals in her shed. She was arrested on her own lawn, HOA fleece, and all screaming about biological warfare. The community ousted her, struck her name from every record. Gary finally humbled, apologized, and asked me to help set up real environmental guidelines for the HOA. I agreed on one condition: official notarized recognition of my lake ownership and a promise of non-interference. War over victory official. But the scars lingered. The fish population was hit, the water needed healing. So I went bigger, teamed up with a conservation nonprofit, turned Harmony Basin into a community education spot. Families came for weekend events, kids giggled as the piranhas munched lettuce, parents learned about native plants. It became what Karen claimed she wanted, just without her drama. Yet even after all that, Karen didn't truly let go. She tried to sabotage me again and again, dumping raw meat by the dock to attract predators sneaking around at night. My cameras caught her every time. Finally, after one last desperate stunt, trying to siphon lake water as evidence for some bizarre government experiment claim she was barred by court order from the property required to get a psychological evaluation and vanished from public life. Harmony Basin thrived, the community healed, people fished, picnicked, laughed, and the HOA under new leadership actually worked with me to keep things beautiful. Even so, every so often I'd find a weird note or see Karen's shadow in the background still clinging to her grudge. She'd tried everything to poison this place figuratively and literally, but ended up making it stronger. The lake wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone willing to stand up for reason and respect. So now I sit on my dock. Some evenings, reel in hand, water calm, the sun dipping low, and think about what this whole saga really means, about how community, when it rallies around what's right, can turn chaos into peace, about how one loud voice doesn't decide the rules for everyone, and about how sometimes the best revenge isn't just winning the fight, it's transforming the whole battlefield. So what do you think? Did I go too far? Or not far enough? What would you have done if the HOA came for your backyard, your peace, your little corner of the world? Drop your thoughts below. I want to hear about your battles, your victories, your Karens. Let's talk about what justice really looks like. Because out here, sometimes you have to make your own.